Alrighty, how's it going everybody? Combo here. Welcome to the Yap Fest. Before you go in the comments and leave, whatever you want to say, please, I implore you for once, wait till at least halfway through the video so you can hear both sides. This video, regardless of what the thumbnail and the title might have you to believe, this is not me coming in here to say, this is OP, nerf this and that. That would be completely hypocritical to my previous statements. Today, we are proposing a discussion. This is an open invitation for everybody to talk about this. Is the defibrillator in the finals a problem? We've talked about balancing in this game before, how right now there may be kind of an identity crisis, between casual and competitive with the major coming up. A subscriber of mine and now fellow content creator, Heavy Enjoyer, just made a fantastic video about the state of balancing in the finals, probably the most intellectually stimulating video I have seen posted on YouTube as it pertains to finals content. Much better than anything I've put out, so please, incredibly high effort video, go check that out. Provides an excellent frame for conversation that somewhat inspired this video. What also inspired this video, right? A little bit more context, and I promise we'll talk about it, but I do have to set this out there. So, I posted my video yesterday. I was using an off-meta loadout, been using it for about 3 seasons now. You see gameplay of it in the background right now. It is Turret, Frag Grenade, Jump Pad, and Gas Mine. I had 3 games in a row on stream where I dropped over 35 kills, and I noticed though, in my comments section, even on stream when people have no context, they come in, they see me using this, they see I'm on medium, and they see no DEFIB, and these people just go feral. They get angry, they call me throwing, I'm a piece of shit, I'm not helping the team, I'm not doing this and that. And, I could meet these comments with aggression, but to an extent, are they wrong? Am I an asshole for not using the DEFIB in a setting where, once again, technically, yeah, I'm playing with people on stream, but I am solo queuing? So that's what I'm talking about today. I'm not here to strawman either side, because genuinely, I think it's important to look at both sides and see, is this gadget a problem? Is it a problem that everybody gets mad when you don't use it? Because not everybody thinks that way. So once again, we're going to look at both sides. I'm not going to strawman the side that I disagree with, which the ones who think the DEFIB is fine, it's good for the game, you should be running it. You also have my side once again, which is, I think it should maybe get the stun gun treatment. So once again, we're going to be sophists today. We're not going to be Plato, right? The guys that Plato hated that were like, hey, you can talk about anything and have 2 sides of an argument. Plato's like, nah, fuck you, idiot. You only have one truth and you can get there through dialectic, right? Any excuse I get to use my major, I'm going to talk about it. But anyway, guys, I'm going to quit yapping here. I don't have a script. I do have a little skeleton script on the left to hopefully guide the conversation so I don't get too off the rails, no pun intended there on the skeleton aspect. But once again, man, we're going to go through this like this. The first one is no DEFIB, essentially, throwing. We're going to talk about it from an individualistic versus a collectivist kind of mindset. We're going to talk about, does the DEFIB needs changed? Some reasons as to why I think it needs changed. We're going to look at both sides. Then finally, to end the video, because this is my video and ultimately my opinion, some ways that I would maybe change the DEFIB to make it more healthy for the game, in my opinion. So I hope that didn't make no sense to you guys. I'm going to try to make this as user-friendly and organized as possible, but you guys know I can yap, so no promises. Anyways, let's begin. So, is no DEFIB throwing? I'm going to put a couple comments on screen as to people who think yes. And we're going to look at this from a collectivist culture, right? Collectivism essentially means when you are not the entirety of the whole, you must work collectively to achieve a common goal. I just spitballed that definition off the top of my head. Essentially what I'm saying is if I'm solo queuing, it is my responsibility to adapt my playstyle for the betterment of the team, which makes sense. I've talked about this before. I think a huge level of skill expression in the finals comes to hopping in a lobby by yourself, being able to see what your teammates are doing, identifying deficiencies and solving those. I come from a military background. We talk about that a lot. Identify the deficiency and solve it. That is one of the key tenets to leadership and understanding how to work as a team. So I understand where they're coming from. Me not putting on a gadget that would best support the team, because let's be honest, as it is currently, DEFIB is the best support gadget in the game. I am actively hurting the team. This is entirely true. So I understand completely where these people are coming from. Here's the thing too, when it comes to dialectic or discussion, it doesn't matter how somebody frames the argument. If they are right, they're right. If they're wrong, they're wrong. We're throwing the decency of saying, hey man, I have a suggestion to no, fuck you idiot, you should put on the DEFIB. Doesn't matter. There is truth in what they're saying, and they are entirely correct. So that is the side of the people who say combo, put that DEFIB on. Now let's see it a little bit from my perspective. I am a solo queuer. Never met you before, never played with you. Maybe I don't use DEFIB very often, right? Maybe I'm a gold player, maybe I'm a bronze player, and all I have experience with are the gas mine, the frag grenade, and the jump pad. What is going to hurt the team more? You yelling at me to put on the DEFIB, which I have no experience with, and now I have to pull out in a ranked game, we'll see, and I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm DEFIBing you out in the open. You're getting even angrier, calling me whatever people call each other, some certain gamer words. Now I'm hurting the team even more. Another theory you could apply to this is, dude, if you want people to use what you want to achieve the highest level of team play, stop bitching in voice chat and go find a team to play with. I've said this 100 times. If you want to be competitive in a competitive team-based shooter, stop solo queuing. That is the most moronic thing you can do in a game like this. Stop bitching at randoms, get on Discord, get on whatever, and find a team if you don't want these issues. Make friends, talk to people, right? You're communicating in voice chat. If you want things to be a certain way, talk to people and play with people with your same mindset, right? That's the thing. If you want a team to be successful, create that team. That's why Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, those guys aren't randomly match made. Before they do any kind of mission, they spend years training together so they can come up with SOPs or standard operating procedures, things that everybody knows. They don't have to take a second thought, they just operate and do it. So that's the other perspective on this. If you want these things, you have to predispose your team to what they're gonna expect, essentially. So there's the two sides, that individualistic, I can't speak today, versus collectivistic, right? Individual, find a team, I'm doing what I want, I know this works, I'm gonna do it. Collectivist, hey man, this is the best support gadget, you're hurting the team by not using it. I hope that makes sense. So I do see both sides, and I think they're equally valid. But here's why I think the DEFIB, in my experience, is maybe not great for the game. So let's talk about it. And I want to make this very clear. The suggestions that I'm going to provide, this is a stun gun situation. And I'm going to draw a lot of parallels to the stun gun, because I think the DEFIB probably needs a very similar approach. Okay, so once again, before we start ranting, hear me out here. So here's some reasons I think the DEFIB needs changed. And the most important one, it takes away player agency. Very similar to the stun gun. And what I mean by that, I don't have a choice if you DEFIB me. You run out, you DEFIB me into an entire enemy team. I get lasered. I've seen people DEFIB their teammates just for them to get lasered so they can get away. Once again, on the receiving end of the DEFIB, it's not fun, right? I have no choice. I get DEFIB'd, I die. Now let's talk about it from the enemy perspective. You worked very hard to get a pick. And then in 2 seconds, the punishment's gone. They walk up, they DEFIB their teammate. You know, higher level players are smart enough to not DEFIB, you know, their teammates in the open. You get that pick maybe from a distance with something like a ranged weapon. In the heal meta, they DEFIB their teammate. You got heal infuser, you got heal beam. That elimination meant nothing unless you're using a weapon like a shotgun that can secure that kill and push up, so that DEFIB is meaningless. So once again, essentially, if you're not using a close range weapon, DEFIB negates really the viability of most long range weapons, assuming you're fighting more than one medium. So once again, to me, the agency it takes away from players is just too much. I'm not a fan of it. Similar to the stun gun, which back in the day, right? You got stun gun by a light, you immediately know what's gonna happen. You got stun gunned, all right, I'm gonna fight. I have no choice, this guy's just gonna fight me now. I'm gonna be at a severe disadvantage, and people hated that. So I don't understand why those comparisons aren't being drawn. Maybe I'm crazy, but there's, you know, that's the big thing. It takes away that player agency, no different than the stun gun, which is I press a button, the game is happening how I want it. You know, the other players have no control over that. The other one, and this one's a little bit in the middle, you know, this is just any game ever with a competitive scene, is the toxicity. Once again, man, I don't take it personally. You know, once again, I hate to keep saying it. Military background, you can say whatever you want. It's not going to faze me. It's fine. But the toxicity in this game surrounding the DEFIB is bad. You know, if there's people screaming at randoms, people new to the game who are trying to try out new things, and you're trying to curb stomp them because they don't want to use what you want, that's bad. That tells me that's a problem. This is something that probably needs some kind of change. If everybody is fucking crying about it on both sides, it's probably an issue and something we need to work on. So once again, toxicity. And with that being said, just to kind of piggyback off that, there's no middle ground, right? Not like the internet is, you know, a strange place when it comes to people not being able to come to a consensus. It's just I'm right, you're wrong. Going back to the Plato versus the sophist kind of thing, right? We can't come to a consensus, so Embark is in a tough situation where it's like they're going to piss off one side of the player base either way if they nerf or buff it, which is why, in my opinion, it just needs an overall rework. And with that being said, I'm going to move into my suggestions here, and then we'll call it. Once again, I want to hear your thoughts on what we just presented there in the beginning. I really hope that made sense. I did my best to structure it in a way that wasn't crazy, but either way, man, we'll see. So now let's talk about some proposed reworks / suggestions. You'll notice that none of these are necessarily nerfs, just different ways we can approach it to kind of address some of the issues we talked about. So, first one here, let's talk about agency. So, if you want to defib your teammate, the first suggestion I have is give it a 3 to 4 second windup. This is very, very similar to the suggestion by Heavy Enjoyer as it pertains to the Winch Claw, which means now if your teammate dies, you can't just run in, press a button, defib them, run away, your teammate dies. It's going to require more thought. You have to wind it up, then you have to run out of cover, which stops you from being in the fight, so you really have to think more. 3 to 4 second wind up. And also at the same time, if you do more risk, which is winding up that defib, you're going to have to give more reward. So maybe the longer you wind it up, the more health your teammate gets. So maybe the minimum to wind up is 3 seconds, the maximum is like 8, and if you do that full wind up, your teammate comes back with full health, and maybe the delay is even shorter. So once again, it could even somewhat be a buff. That is suggestion 1. Suggestion 2, we don't change it at all. We make it a specialization because defib is incredibly strong, I think on the same level as something like the heal beam, if not stronger. We make it a specialization. That doesn't mean heal beam becomes a gadget. It's just defib is a specialization now. Medium has 4. That's literally it. That's another one I've heard go around. Here's another one. We change nothing about the defib. However, you give the person getting defibbed the ability to cancel it. So think about in games when you have like hold circle to be dead. Think For Honor, for instance, right? If your teammate's trying to revive you, you know, just giving that player who's getting rezzed some agency. Like for example, and you might just say, well, that's toxic, but I'll present a scenario for you, right? It's like, okay, you're trying to wipe so you can get everybody back up so people don't have to coin. You're trying to stop the defib chain because you're wasting time. You as the player now have the agency to say, no, dummy, I'm in the middle of 3 double barrel lights. You're not going to defib me. I'm going to cancel it. Once again, just giving players more agency, and I don't think this would be a problem. Yeah, people troll in games. If somebody canceling their defib is the worst kind of trolling you're dealing with, that's really not that bad. But once again, just giving that player a choice. That's the big thing there. So number 3, leave it as it is. Then just give them a choice. Number 4, leave it as it is, or maybe even have the opponents respawn at full health. However, the enemy team, when they're going through that animation where the cubes are kind of compiling, those have 50 health, opponents have the ability to shoot it. Maybe heavies have 100, maybe lights have 50, medium 75, I don't know, man. But give the enemy team the ability to cancel defibs. This could also happen through maybe glitch grenades. This is probably the most popular one I've seen thrown around, but give the enemy team the ability to cancel it. Obviously, if that person getting defibbed has their thing canceled, they're not going to receive a death. But that's the option there. So once again, number 4, you shoot the statues. Maybe the people come back with more health, maybe not. Not entirely sure, but you can shoot them while they're getting defibbed. So that's the other option there. And then finally, if you are the person defibbing your teammate, it would cost one of your revive coins. This is probably the most severe one. And if you're going to do this, people coming back defibbed are going to have to come back at full health. I mean, there's no way. Losing a revive coin in ranked or whatever, man, that's huge. So if you're gonna use the DEFIB, the person comes back at full health, but you yourself, the person using the DEFIB, you would lose a respawn coin. This is probably the most intense one here. Also, the issue with that is like, okay, what if they run out of coins? I have no clue, man. These are just suggestions. I'm just trying to put stuff out there. So that's the final one I have. Go for the DEFIB, you lose a coin. People are gonna be thinking a lot more about using DEFIB if that's the case. And once again, the most important thing here is by limiting the amount of DEFIBs, right? Even if you love it, you think it's awesome, just introducing more variety. There's so many gadgets, but I feel like on medium, you really only get to choose one gadget. You always have to have DEFIB. You always have to have either jump pad or zipline. So really on medium, you only get to choose one gadget. And also, if you run turret like me, you're also gonna get a bunch of shit because you're not running DMAT or heal beam. So once again, man, it's just, it just is what it is. Other classes have similar issues. If you're on light and you're not running gateway, for example, or glitch grenade or sonars, whatever, you might get shit. On heavy, if you're not running dome shield, you might get shit. But on medium, I think more than anything, if you're not running the DMAT, people are angry, and that is a problem. With that being said, everybody, I'm gonna quit yapping here. I hope you appreciated this video. Once again, I want this to be an open discussion. You know, that's gonna involve some yapping, as you're seeing here. So once again, man, I want you guys to talk about it. I want to, as a community, hopefully come to somewhat of a consensus. Whether that happens or not, or whether one video is gonna fix that, I'm not a fucking idiot. Of course it won't. But either way, man, I wanna hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading just about every comment, because once again, this is a very, very hot topic right now, especially with the upcoming major. All right, people, I'm gonna quit yapping. This has been Combo. Thank you so much for coming. Oh my God, English is hard, dude. Coming and listening. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace out. Later.